John, the government has just delivered its budget, its second zero budget as they describe it. First impressions?
It was an expected budget. Most of what was in the budget was clearly foreshadowed. The days of keeping everything secret until budget day and then suddenly releasing it all have gone, and I think that's a good thing because budgets shouldn't be a surprise. They should actually, people should have time to adjust to them. The main things were, the government has been very frugal in terms of its spending in very difficult times. Closing tax loopholes, there were some cuts to spending in health and education, but then they've also put more money into health and education. So there have been a lot of new initiatives, but those have been funded from savings elsewhere, so that the total has ended up being pretty much zero in terms of new extra spending. Also, it was expected that they would show a surplus in their projections. They have a very small surplus appearing from 2013-14. And then net debt also peaks at around 2014. That's important that they do get back to surplus, that they do keep a grip on debt, because the credit rating agencies do look at the government accounts very closely, particularly in these times when New Zealand as a whole has quite high debt levels. So they downgraded New Zealand's credit rating last year. They will be looking closely to see that the government is getting its debt, its financial position in order as well. And so that flows through into keeping New Zealand interest rates relatively low, so people that borrow for a mortgage or for a business can borrow at lower interest rates.
Those are some of the good points. What were the bad points in the budget?
In one sense, it's a lost opportunity for the government. What they've really done has been at the margins. A lot of people were describing it as nickeling and diming, but they haven't really tackled some of those big spending drivers over the longer term. Some of those drivers, some of those spending areas that are just going to get worse, particularly as New Zealand's population ages, things like superannuation, health spending, which is a very, very large spending area for the government. So that means that future governments will also have to make spending cuts in those areas. So it's more sensible to give people time to adjust to those sorts of things by foreshadowing them and signalling them further in the future.
One ugly thing, of course, is the very volatile global economic situation. That must make it very hard for a government to make a budget.
Actually, that is one of the shortcomings of the budget, in that the forecasts that the Treasury did were finalised well before the latest sort of reinvigoration of that volatility in international markets. They do have to be cautious and they do have to be prudent because of that situation, and we've seen in Europe and other countries overseas what happens when you don't have a sound fiscal position and then the economy turns against you. The government is being conservative for that eventuality.